Tell us about that.
Elvis fell in love with my voice. I mean, he really did. And he used to say to the Memphis Mafia, those were the guys that were his cousins and sort of hung out with him and everything. And Joe Esposito was the lead guy under Colonel Parker. And he used to say to them, I love that girl, blah, 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 blah. Translation, I love that girl's voice. I'd love to meet her one day. So I'm in a market and I'm buying a carton of milk, and this sort of creepy guy comes up to me. It's all in the book, Elvis, Rocky, and Me. Comes up to me and says, aren't you the girl that sang To Know Him Is to Love Him? And I went, yeah. He said, Elvis loves your voice. And I went, Elvis who?
Mm-hmm. Not
Said,
Marciona, not Balboa.
he said, Elvis Presley. And I went, I dropped the milk and I went, right, sure, of course, yes, Elvis Presley loves my voice. I mean, I didn't believe him. But he said, I'd love to take you to meet Elvis. And being that I'm my father's daughter and my dad lived on the edge, jockeys live on the edge. He wasn't a gambling man, but he lived on the edge. I gave him my phone number. Now, I didn't know if he was a rapist, a killer. I didn't know anything, a bank robber, but I gave him my phone number. And sure enough, he called me about 2 weeks later. And this sort of creepy guy says to me, I'll pick you up in a couple of days, and Elvis would love to meet you. Now, my mother had handed me the phone, and she's like looking at me because she said, Annette, my real name, Annette, there's an Elvis Presley friend on the phone that wants to talk to you. And so she knew something was going on. My father said, go. And my mother said, no. And I went. So I go to Elvis's house where he was renting on Bellagio. And they were doing Viva Las Vegas. They had just finished. And on the way side of the room is this absolutely gorgeous human being. And looked like a cat. I love cats. I mean, his movements were so graceful and fluid and masculine. I mean, they were beautiful. And I'm standing there like a mouse. And he came up to me and he said, finally came up to me, he said, so why did you name translation? So why'd you name the group the Teddy Bears? And I didn't know what to say. And I looked at him and I went, just want to be your teddy bear. And that started our love affair. And we stayed friends up until the very end. He was so proud for me of doing Rocky. And both Talia Shire, Diane Warren, and myself all believed that if he was offered a Stars Board to play against Barbra Streisand. And we believed that if he would have done that film, he would have been nominated for an Oscar. And I believe he would have lived. He so wanted to be respected as an actor and not just doing fluff films. Because if you looked at some of his films, there were moments of really good acting in them. And I've always believed that it would have saved his life. And the day that he died, I was so heartbroken. I was at the Polo Lounge, and this little Philip Morris man, my height, came running in, and he was crying. And he said, Elvis Presley just died. Elvis Presley just died. And this collective sigh of sadness went through the room. And I went home and I sat down at my piano, and from 4 o'clock in the afternoon till 4 a.m., I wrote this song called You Love My Night Away, which is the reason the book is done, the reason the documentary is coming out next year is because of this song. I wrote it on August 16th, 1977, and put it away. I never have changed one note of music or one word. And I believe that Elvis, his spirit, was still with me because 3 major composers have listened to this song, which is, by the way, on the audiobook, and have said to me, Carol, where did you come up with those chord changes? And my answer is, I don't know. I'd never written them before. And there they were. And I just wrote this song, and it's called You Loved My Night Away. And it's a song about my feelings about him and his about me at the time. I mean, I asked Joe Esposito years later, I said, did Elvis really care about me? Because I think all women think that. Did he really care about me? I mean, he was my first boyfriend, my very first love. And he said, Carol, more than you know, he just thought you were precious, just precious. And still saddens me to this day that
Yeah,
he didn't fulfill what he wanted to do.
and it's going to be almost 50 years ago when he passed, which is so hard to believe, back in 1977.
77,
Yeah,
right?
it was the summertime of 77. And I would imagine, post his passing, having had that loving relationship with him, knowing him as you did, caring about him, and him the same with you, um, everything afterwards, all the different stories and documentaries and all the talk of Elvis Presley, he's still part of American history,
Oh,
still part of, the psyche. There, people just can't get enough of anything that has to do with Elvis Presley, his story, his music, all of it. But I would imagine there's a part of you in your heart that has felt protective of him, because there's all these different stories that have always come out about what has happened to him and his demise and all the different things, good, bad, and indifferent. And I would imagine for you, knowing him early on like that, you've probably always had this special place in your heart and have felt protective of him while everything else swirls around about who Elvis really was.
well, I saw the difference of when I went with him, and in the end, because I was at one of the very last shows at the International, at the Hilton, before he passed away, on the last ones that he did. And I'm not going to say what I saw. I'm just not going to. I think I put it in the book, and I've often wondered whether I should have or not. But the difference was so astounding and so tragic. And I had such a sad feeling of foreboding, or whatever the word is, that something terrible was going to happen. I'm not psychic, but I do sense a lot of things. Maybe that comes with songwriting, but I do sense it. And his passing, I mean, I was asked to go to Graceland this year. I'd never been to Graceland because I knew him here and I knew him in Vegas. And I sang the song on the night of August 16th, 1977. I sang it this year at Graceland. Women were crying. I mean, I got a standing ovation. I almost freaked out. And people were standing in line for hours to get the book. But it was, when I sang it, there's my favorite picture that has ever been taken of me is a picture that was taken that day it's a shot when I'm singing, and it's my favorite picture. And I think that somehow, as I believe he was in the room when I wrote the song, somehow when I sang it at Graceland, I think that he set that picture up, because it's a picture like I've never taken before. It's really unique. So he's been, and now I've been asked to go back to Malaysia. I wrote their music for tourism years ago. And sure enough, when President Trump landed in Malaysia a month and a half ago, what do you think they played? The theme from Rocky. And now they're asking me to come back and write again. But do you want to know what day they want me to perform the song I'm going to write for one of their states?